The McKnight Brain Research Foundation was founded in 1999 by Evelyn F. McKnight with the specific goal of alleviating the effects of cognitive aging and age-related memory loss. Today, it remains the only private foundation devoted exclusively to discovering the mysteries of cognitive aging while helping people achieve a lifetime of cognitive health. In its first 20 years, the foundation established Evelyn F. McKnight Brain Institutes at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, the University of Arizona, and the University of Miami, and the Evelyn F. and William L. McKnight Brain Institute at the University of Florida. By partnering with the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health, and through the support of 3 Cognitive Aging Summits and the National Academy of Medicine Cognitive Aging Report, we have made great progress over the last 2 decades. The McKnight Brain Research Foundation and the McKnight Brain Institutes are leaders in cognitive aging research. Together, we are committed to sharing our exciting research findings and practical suggestions for maintaining brain health with the public in order to alleviate age-related cognitive decline and memory loss. By telling the story of their science with clarity and passion, and leveraging today's many communication platforms to reach broad audiences, our scientists and clinicians are the best messengers to achieve this goal. And now, we would like to welcome you to How to Effectively Communicate Your Science, brought to you by the McKnight Brain Research Foundation Communications Working Group. Welcome to How to Effectively Communicate Your Science. You know your science is important. Your colleagues and patients know that your science is important. But how do we convince others, including non-scientists and the media, that your science is as important as it truly is? The goal of this module is to share with you a high-yield overview of some science communication basics. Let's hone in on some high-yield tips on how to communicate your science. Showing the public the value of your work may mean connecting them in ways that you haven't thought about previously, such as through anecdotes about your own life or your professional experiences. The cornerstone of communications is to know your audience. You're speaking to the general public and have to understand who they are, what their prior knowledge on the subject is going to be, and what their prior interest is. You have to be able to communicate with the public at their level so they can understand what they should take away from your work. Let's review the 4 perennial obstacles that need to be addressed when discussing your work. The first is confusion. Science is naturally complicated. It's very easy for people to have a hard time following the science itself. The second obstacle is boredom. If they aren't sufficiently engaged, they start to gloss over and disengage from the story. The third problem is, even if you've managed to put the science into clear and interesting terms, people simply have a lot of other things to do with their time, and you have to deal with those other priorities. More recently, the fourth obstacle is distrust that has emerged. Even if the message is clear and understandable, there may be something that stops people from trusting that information. One way to counteract this is to tell stories. Stories are the most effective way of communicating information because we care about stories, because we engage with stories, and we remember stories. Also, when a journalist is coming to you and they want to tell a story about your science, what are they looking for? It needs to be new and have novelty. So you can't just tell people, this is the 3rd cellular receptor that we've identified in this field and we're very excited. This brings us to 17 new receptors in this category. Your story has to be interesting. It has to be in some way relevant to the audience. It has to be clear to that audience. An example would be a scientist looking for cofactors that affect the binding of serotonin receptors. It's great that you've made progress, but that's not something that most members of the public are going to be able to engage with. But if you're able to cast this in terms of, we've made important discoveries that may actually pay off in terms of treatment of depression in the future, now you're speaking their language. You're giving them something to care about. Another important thing to consider is that the media have their own constraints. News today moves at a blistering pace. As a visual media, they have something new to show every 3 seconds. Watch how rapidly they change from shot to shot. A long story is probably one that you can say in 30 seconds. Can you describe your research in less than 30 seconds? If you can't, your ability to get your work into the news is hugely compromised. Concise, bullet point statements. Make a list of these types of talking points and have them ready on the tip of your tongue during the interview. So, these are some of the things that the journalists are looking for. But what are they not looking for? They're not looking for completeness. There's a wealth of information and detail that you have to report in your published work, but this isn't feasible when speaking to most reporters. Before you talk to the journalist, spend time thinking about how your work could be told as a quick, short story, like a detective story. Because you're the detective, you are trying to solve a crime or solve a puzzle, and turn your scientific story into 3 short lines. In the first sentence, what is the problem or mystery that you are working on? And the key thing, it has to be a problem or a mystery that the audience would immediately care about. The second sentence is the new thing you've done. What's the new clue that you've discovered? The new answer that you found? And finally, the third part is, what is the implication of your discovery? How does that discovery advance us? 1, 2, 3. Mystery, solution, implications. That's a story. If you think about ways of talking about your research in those terms, you are already a long way towards being able to successfully communicate that to the journalist, who can then in turn successfully communicate that on to different, wider audiences.